Well, hello and welcome back to the Radical Dreamers. We are currently standing in front of Riddell's room after searching it and the Lynx's room. We're going to go ahead and we're going to continue on our way past the Riddell's room. We continued down the corridor until we reached an intersection. There was a left turn in the corridor leading to some stairs going upward. The corridor also continued straight on towards the entrance to a large plaza-like atrium. Okay, we're going to go ahead and we're going to take the left passage going towards the stairs and leading upwards. The passage to the stairway was short. With Kid leading the way, we started to climb the narrow staircase. At the top, we found another intersection. Taking the corridor to the right would lead us to a dead end with a large door, while the way to the left led to the terrace. The narrow side passage in front of us was open. Okay, we're going to go ahead and now we're going to go down the side passage in front of us. Kid stopped in her tracks, her senses clearly tingling. Magil and I were right behind her and immediately realized that something was very wrong. We could hear a faint whispering as if a spell were being cast, and a faint light was emanating from a monster sitting crouched on the flagstones ahead. Okay, so I think this is, again, one of the random battles. Let's see here. A long, bony finger traced strange shapes on the tiles. A demon. I pulled out my knife and readied myself to confront it. Let's see here. Let's go ahead and let's just stand there. Unable to decide what to do, the demon's tail lashed. Right, everything in here is timed and I always forget this. We just took some damage there, which was actually really bad. It was only a light blow, but it stung just the same. Don't ever stand around. If I fail here, I will go ahead. Let's go ahead and go for it. I will reload, so don't worry. I made a dash to one side of it, lifting my dagger as I went. It tore through the creature's paper-thin skin, but it was only a flesh wound. Bloody things laughing at us. And it was too, chuckling maniacally in a way that made me deeply uneasy. I raised my knife again and prepared myself for the worst. My eyes met the demons, and it was then that I saw it. There was a twinkle behind them. I couldn't tear my gaze away. His chuckle grew to a belly laugh as it peered into the very depths of my soul. And then, just like that, it had muttered a few words and melted into the shadows. Where seconds before it towered above us, now not a trace of it remained. What was that all about? Why would it just disappear mid-fight? Guess it had someplace else to be. Kid gave a shrug, doing her best at least to feign indifference. But I couldn't shake the sense of unease that filled me and peered uneasily at the darkness into which the vile creature had disappeared. Phew, I had taken a few knocks, but I was alright. A scrape or two wouldn't stop me. Maybe you ain't such a drongo after all. Just goes to show, any old weirdo can make something of themselves if they put their mind to it. Kid's eyes glinted with mischief. Well, at least I'm still alive, so that's good. I think you have 20 hit points to work with, so that's not great that we took some damage. We headed down the side passage. At the end of it, we came to an old, immaculately polished door. All right, let's go ahead and go inside. Kid gently pushed the door ajar and peeked into the room. The next thing I knew, she slipped inside. Magil and I followed. Looks like a study. The room was lit by the moonlight coming through the long, slender windows, slanting down in pale beams through the darkness. It was pretty big for a study, with an immaculate antique desk dominating the center. There were rows of bookshelves lined with thick, dusty old tomes. The wall to the rear of the room was decorated with paintings, and shelves of vases and painted plates stood before it. They all seemed to be couriers from foreign lands. Okay, let's go ahead and check the desk. I went over to the desk and started searching the drawers. There I found a neatly arranged set of pens, ink bottles, and other writing materials. Nothing of interest, in other words. A small portrait on the desk caught my eye. It was a picture of a young girl with a gentle smile on her lips. Who was she? That's the girl Lynx adopted. If you ask me, it wasn't because he was looking to help the needy, said Kid, peering over my shoulder. She wrinkled her nose in distaste. Not even a looker. Suddenly there was a knock at the door. It wasn't a loud knock, but in the bottomless silence of the night, it might as well have been a thunderclap. Kid and I stood bolt upright and turned toward it. Magil, meanwhile, hid in the shadows, drifting away like smoke. Panicked, I whispered to Kid, we're gonna go ahead and hide under the desk here. Hide under the desk. You what? There's no time. I shoved Kid under the desk, then darted under it with her. Oof, it was more cramped than I thought it would be. I packed myself in as best as I could, but Kid and I found ourselves in an awkward tangle of legs and arms. Slowly, the door opened. Flickering candlelight spread from the doorway with a warm glow. A shadowy figure appeared at the threshold. I tried to pack myself into the space under the desk just a little tighter and stilled my breath. I looked down for a moment and my heart skipped a beat. Kid's lips were right there. For a moment, everything else seemed to drift away. The pink bow of her mouth was so soft, so perfectly formed. Suddenly, my heart was beating so loud I thought my chest would burst. I tore my eyes away and squeezed them tightly shut. But it seemed that whoever it was didn't mean to come in. They suddenly stood there. Strange, I thought I heard something, but the Lord of the Manor is away, of course. Why would there be anyone in here? I have to get over my nerves. Everything was fine until we heard the news that Poor was on the move. The figure quietly closed the door, plunging the room back into darkness. The voice trailed off to a whisper. We remained motionless, keeping our ears pricked for any sign of an unwelcome return. All we heard were footsteps moving away. As I stayed hidden, listening for trouble, a thought began to cross my mind. Kid? Sure does smell nice. Wait, Serge, you gonna move your arse or what? She whispered into my ear, her breath tickling as she spoke. Huh? Oh, sorry. I rushed to my feet in a panic, smacking my head right into the top of the desk. Ow! Cradling my head in my hands, I crawled out from underneath. Ooh, that stings. Kid followed right after and stood up, looking down at me on the floor. Not your most heroic moment. You alright? Yeah, I'll live. She took a look around the room. No signs of that dirtbag Lynx. Luckily for him, she snorted. So Poor has made its move. Magil emerged from the shadows, contemplating the news we'd overheard. Kid, if the rumors are true, we might well be about to find ourselves in a very difficult situation. This seemed to set her thinking too. Poor was a powerful nation that ruled the southern continent. I'd heard it was a prosperous land whose recent and sudden development had pushed it far ahead of its neighbors, which made me wonder, what would its inhabitants want here out in the sticks? They couldn't be after the frozen flame too, could they? As valuable as it might be, a jewel was just a jewel in the grand scheme of things. I couldn't imagine it being an item of national interest. I mean, ultimately, it was just a pretty rock, right? Let them do what they want. If everyone's busy playing soldiers, they won't be bothering us. Come on, we've got things to do. She headed for the door. We left the room and made our way back down to the side passage. All right, so now we want to head towards the terrace. We made our way back down the dark side passage leading from the study. Eventually, we arrived back at the intersection. Some stairs led downward and the corridor branched left and right, with the right branch leading back toward the terrace. All right, we're gonna go towards the terrace. Leading the group as usual, Kid suddenly stopped. What's that? She jabbed her finger at something in the darkness. Straining my eyes, I could see a pale white bundle of something shaking in the shadows. Huh, that's strange. I moved in front of Kid to try and get a better look. And then suddenly the strange presence began crawling across the floor towards us at incredible speed. I didn't have time to brace myself. The white figure reached my foot, then reared up to its full height. It was a skeleton. The skeleton and I stood face to face, his empty eye socket staring straight at me, or seeming to at least. What was I going to do? Alright, we're gonna just go ahead and tackle the skeleton. I charged in to tackle the skeleton. Yeah! There was a crunching sound and a clattering of bones as the skeleton was knocked back by the blow. Its body split clean in two at the waist. Better luck next time, muttered Kid dryly. As if in response, the skeleton's upper body picked itself up from the ground, turning its skull towards me. Balancing its body with its left hand, and then pulled the skull from its head with its right hand. What's going on? Before I could get the words out, it heaved its skull at me. What was I going to do? Dodge! Whoosh! The skull sailed past me as I quickly stepped aside. Ow! Only to smash into Kid, who was standing right behind me. That bloody hurt. Why did you move out of the way for? She returned the favor by thumping me in the back of the head. Magil walked over to where the skull lay on the floor and stamped on it, shattering it to pieces. The rest of the skeleton collapsed, falling apart with a clatter. It didn't move after that. We're done here. Let's get moving. Phew, I'd taken a few knocks, but I was alright. A scrape or two wouldn't stop me. Basically, this just tells you where you're at when it comes to health-wise. Alright, so let's go ahead and let's move on. After a short walk down the corridor, the terrace came into view. All right, so let's see here. Let's go ahead and go to the corridor. A short way along the corridor, running from the right-hand side of the terrace, we found an ancient-looking door again on our right. Kid pressed an ear against it, listening for any signs of life. Dead quiet. Don't reckon there's anybody in there. All right, well, let's go ahead and go inside. In we go. Kid stilled her breath and reached for the handle. The door wasn't locked. It swung slowly open. What's this room supposed to be? Place is a dump. Kid had poked her head in through the door, taking a quick peek to see if there was anyone inside, and was disappointed by what she found. The room was large and littered with peculiar-looking machinery and knickknacks, all of which were covered in dust and had seemingly been dumped there haphazardly. Everything looked like it had been there rusting for a very long time. The ends of the room were completely dark, and it was impossible to tell just how big it was or even what the walls and floors looked like. It seemed the manor's inhabitants had turned the old clock tower into a makeshift storage space some time ago. I stepped warily inside. Leave that alone. I looked over toward Magil and saw a kid trying to pull something from the shadows. It was a huge sword that appeared to be very old indeed. You don't need that old bludgeon. It'll only get in the way. And as much of an antique as it is, it won't fetch much on the market in that condition. Yeah, reckon it might, you know. There's plenty of collectors who just love old bits of junk. Well, some old bits of junk. Pouting, Kid left the sword where she stood. At least she put it back down gently. It was then that we heard a voice from the shadows. And what exactly are you doing here, I just about jumped out of my skin. Who's there? Kid and Magil turned to face the voice, ready to fight. A wizened crone emerged from the shadows. She was hunched over and wore a hood draped over her face. I could tell at a glance that she wasn't just old, she was positively ancient. It's just some dottery old bag. What do you think you're doing sneaking up on us like that? Kid's shoulders relaxed as the tension left her body. Magil, however, continued to give the woman a piercing stare. Oh ho, what an impish little thing you are. Here to visit old friend, perhaps, not in the dead of night, I suspect. The crone narrowed her eyes. Let's get a closer look at you. Ah, yes. You must be here to get your revenge on Lynx. How did she... My heart jumped. She seemed to know exactly who we were. We were in trouble. What if she sounded the alarm? We'd have to give up on the treasure and run for our lives. What were we going to do? So let's see here. Let's go ahead and tell her she was right. So what if we are? Kid narrowed her eyes right back at the crone. What's it to you if we were here to get our revenge on old Lynxy boy? You gonna do something about it? You never change, do you? The crone chuckled madly, her small frame shaking. Ah, the boldness of youth. Yes, that's the spirit. You what? Kid looked at the crone, completely confused. I was no less mystified. What the heck are you on about? Oh, it must have been 4 or 5 years ago. Yes, it was around then that an innocent-looking young thief stole into the manor, looking to singe Lord Lynx's whiskers. She couldn't have been much older than about 10, now that I think about it. Shocked, my gaze turned to Kid. A wet glint had appeared in Kid's eyes, but her glare was like ice. It certainly felt as if the temperature of the room had suddenly dropped below freezing. With a chuckle, the crone continued her story, pretending to not to have noticed the change in mood. She was an orphan, you know, came after Lynx to avenge a woman who'd loved her like her own daughter. But all the vengefulness in the world couldn't change the fact that she was only a little girl. She was no match for Lynx's men, sadly, and they quickly captured her. Lynx is the kind of man one would fear to have for an ally, never mind a foe. Had it not been for the timely assistance of a friend of hers, the girl would have certainly been executed. The way the people of the manor told it, the very shadows pitied the girl and rushed in to spirit her away. I wonder how much of the tale could be true. I have nothing but sympathy for those who know failure, of course. You can't win all the time. And sometimes, against all the odds, fate really can be foiled, and the clockwork of history sent into disarray. No, the ones I have no patience for are those who do not recognize their failure, or who fail and choose to give up as a result. The crone looked up from under her hood, stared Kid directly in the face, and grinned. Kid's anger faded, giving way to a dumbfounded expression. If you wish to steal the jewel from Lynx, if you truly wish to triumph, you will have to let go of a treasure of your own, Kid. For as long as you cling onto it, the hands of your clock will never move. They'll stay exactly where they came to rest all those years ago. Who are you? Oh, me? Why, I'm just an old bag, like you said. I do apologize, I must have taken up a lot of your time with all my babbling. I'll leave you in peace. Oh, but before I go, the crone turned to face me. You seem to be injured, young man. If you wish, I can take a look at your wounds. With all the attention suddenly turned towards me, I panicked a little. Sure. What? Alright, please do. The crone muttered a few words as her bony fingers drew sigils in the air. A pale, gentle light began to surround my body, filling me with a strange warmth. Strike a light. That's no ordinary spell. Kid was impressed. I felt my wounds healing and heard a nostalgic melody that soothed the wounds in my heart. Before I realized it, the crone was gone. Hey, lady. Kid strained her eyes, scanning the darkness, but there was no one to be seen, and her calls went unanswered. Who the bloody heck was that? Kid looked like she had just woken up on the floor of the Laughing Pig after a few too many. And what did she mean about you having to let go of a treasure? Well, we won't find any answers here. Time to move on. Magil brought us back down to earth, emotionless as always. It almost seemed as if he thought nothing had happened at all. Yeah, I guess you're right. Kid walked quickly to the door, keen to move on. Hold it, you. Just as I was about to follow Kid out of the room, she jabbed me in the side with her elbow. You stingy little bugger, Serge. Why didn't you tell her to share some of that healing magic with the rest of us? Classic Kid. Alright, so we can go left or right again here. Right lay the depths of the manor, while the way to the left led back to the terrace. We're gonna go ahead and go down the corridor. Continuing on to the corridor, we came across a rather sturdy looking door on our left. A little further on stood a stairway leading upward. Alright, we're gonna go ahead. Well, this door clearly meant to keep something safe. If there ain't some kind of treasure behind it, me name ain't Kid. Sniff, sniff. Yeah, that's the smell of cold, hard cash. Alright. She muttered to herself as she began to inspect the door more closely. Let's go ahead and try and go inside. Bah, what am I, stupid? Of course it's bloody locked. Kid had tried the door handle a few times before giving it a grumpy kick. Bloody door's got a magic barrier on it, and the bloody barrier's got a barrier of its own to boot. It'll take more than me putting the boot in to get through all that. I see that unless we find the key, we don't have a hope of getting inside. Reckon I can handle a key hunt, especially if it's that idiot Lynx who's hidden it. If we can find his room, I'll sniff it out in 2 seconds flat. You just watch. Okay, let's go ahead and move on then. There was a little more we could do here, so we decided to look elsewhere. Let's go ahead and continue on. The corridor ended at the foot of some stairs. With Kid in the lead, we headed upstairs. It was dark and the stairway was narrow. We watched our footing carefully as we climbed. The stone of the steps was worn smooth with age, and I lost count of how many there were as we spiraled onward and upward. An awful sense of foreboding haunted me. I had no idea why, but it felt as though we were marching to the gallows. When we arrived at the top of the stairs, we were greeted by an old, heavy door looming in the silence. All was deathly silent, and the still, clammy air added to the sense of ominous apprehension. Something's very wrong here, I muttered without thinking. I hear cursed whispers from beyond the door, Magil added, doing nothing to lift the mood. Ah, grow up, will ya? Kid shot back at us derisively. She was already examining the door. Well, if it ain't locked, I don't hear anyone inside. We're gonna go inside. Alright, here goes. Kid tried the handle and the door opened and with a slow, heavy swing, revealed what lay beyond. It was a small, cylindrical room that appeared to be the inside of one of the stone towers. It was completely deserted and there were no windows. What's this supposed to be? Something about this place still gives me the creeps. Still standing in the doorway, Kid seemed suddenly taken aback. There might be something in here. Let's take a closer look. A closer look at a bloody empty room? Pah, might as well, I guess. We did climb all them stairs. Kid stepped through the door, grumbling under her breath. I scanned the room and then noticed something on the floor. The flagstones were covered in dozens of narrow scratches, and in places there were thick black stains. Something in the stains spoke of a horror that no amount of scrubbing would ever wash away, a malice and a sadness beyond imagining. There's something written here. Crouching in front of a wall, Magil was inspecting some brownish markings that looked like more of the same stains. Someone's carved letters into the wall and scrambled them using blood magic. Kid had gone over to take a look. Looks pretty old, hard to read too. Some of it's been worn away. Let's see. I cannot hold out much longer. My only hope now is to leave the Acacian signet in this room. Acacian signet? Suddenly, the door slammed shut. We jumped to our feet with a start. From above us, we heard an unsettly creaking sound. The walls and floor began to tremble. the hell's going on? Kid's eyes darted around the room as she desperately tried to figure out what was happening. The creaking sound from above continued, and the ceiling moved ominously closer. Up there. That doesn't look good. We walked right into a bloody trap. Kid bit her lip. We've got to do something and fast. We don't have time to sit and think about this. We want to go get the door down. Yeah. Kid sprang at the door like an arrow, slamming into its shoulder first, but it was far too heavy and her light frame bounced right off of it. Damn it. Magil raced towards the door like the wind, smashing into it with a ferocious force. It made a creaking sound and shook from the impact, but stood firm. Desperately, I hurled myself at it too. The shock of the impact rushed through my body, but it was no good. Meanwhile, the rusty creaking from above continued, as did the ceiling's inexorable journey downward, and to make matters worse, now countless blades were popping in and out. Serge, Magil, this is gonna take the three of us. Timing our blows, we all charged the door at once. 1, twice, a third time, and then the door was open and we were collapsed in a heap in the corridor outside. What? Behind us, we heard the sound of the bladed ceiling grinding on the stone floor of the tower room. The metallic scraping noise it made was awful. We could only look on in silent horror at the fate we'd so narrowly evaded. The machinery continued for a short while before slowly coming to a stop. It seemed the ceiling trap had finally finished its grisly work. Bugger me, talk about a nasty surprise. Is it some sort of execution chamber? Magil continued, seeming to be deep in thought. In any case, that writing mentioned Acacia. Yeah, what was that all about? I asked. The Acacia Dragons, the elite knightly order serving General Viper, who once governed the territory of Galesburg to the west. Formerly knightly order, I should say. They were wiped out more than a decade ago by the lord of this very manor, no less. Thanks for the history lesson, Mage. Kid rose to her feet, patting off the dust. Too bad we're not here for fairy tale nights. Come on, we've got a lot more exploring left to do. Magil shrugged silently and we headed back to the stairs. With Kid in the lead, we headed downstairs. All right, we got pretty far this time, so I will see you all next time as we continue down the corridor. We'll see what we're gonna do next.